So you brought your magic cards, and you're not even going to be able to use them.
No, I was hoping to show them to Rob because he had never seen any of my magic decks before, and I'm like, Rob would enjoy this, and then he's not here, and this is very frustrating.
For the love of God, don't open that door. Also, what can I get you to drink, sir?
That is a hell of an intro. I'll take a Wolfer. Or vanilla.
Let's give it up.
Just do something. Something that's dark.
Johnny, all good?
Oh.
Can I get another preamp, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. That was Cameron, by the way, everybody.
Yeah.
He is the new occasional interrupter whenever we are working out of the wonderful Hi-Fi Brewing
In Redmond, Washington.
Brewery in Redmond, Washington. They are kindly having us again because I was hoping to be by for trivia later, but I don't know if it's happening because the usual guy who runs trivia isn't currently here, and I don't know what's up with that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Pretty much a nice summary there. And yeah, no, I brought my cards. Rob isn't here. I was hoping to show him this because I'm like, Rob and I talk about Magic all the time, but like neither of us have ever congruently brought our decks at the same time. And I'm like, maybe I can. And he's not goddamn here. I remembered, and he's not here. Not that big a deal. Just like,
and in with the concept of trivia, and back to that, there's a possibility it's not going to happen just because it's Thanksgiving week. And like things always get a little out of whack on Thanksgiving week.
I don't know. Maybe Chris has got nothing better to do.
Maybe.
There's always that possibility.
And, I don't know. He might. I don't know.
Remind me to ask Cameron the next time he comes by.
Yeah. All right. So do you want to just jump right in?
Yeah, why not? We're here anyway. Let's start the show.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Hi, I'm John.
I'm Andrew.
And this is Agree to Disagree.
Yes, it is.
And we're talking about a god-fucking awful movie.
That just straight going right into it, just all opinions on the table.
I hate this movie.
I couldn't tell, John. I was uninformed about your hatred for this film. Please tell me more about your abject hatred for this film.
So, it turns out, by the way, this is the 10th anniversary of this film.
Oh, really?
Yes, Transformers.
I didn't even mean to do that. That's pretty coincidental.
The reboot, kind of?
It's like I was being told things by Primus that I should make sure to talk about this film. Not the band, for reference. For those of you who don't know that much about Transformers, Primus is the ancient deity at the center of Cybertron that made the Transformers in the first place. What I'm saying is I know way too much about this franchise.
That's fair. I loved the cartoon series when I was a kid. Actually, when I was a really little kid, I really liked the GoBots, which were like the Kmart spin-off.
Except GoBots came first.
Did they?
Yeah, they came first.
Oh.
GoBots aren't actually knockoff Transformers. Transformers are knockoff GoBots given American styling and American bulkiness.
So for background, the Transformers is a cartoon series that was developed on the back of some toys that already existed.
Yeah, it was developed by Hasbro as a way of selling their toy line.
Yes.
Because at that point, if I remember correctly, there had been some serious loosening restrictions on advertising towards children. And they're like, what if we made a television show that was entirely an advertisement?
Well, and now that's kind of like status quo for new cartoons.
And then they just started printing money.
Like, there's a shit ton of cartoons now that do that.
Oh, God, yeah, but nothing nearly as blatant as the 80s, where, like, He-Man's entire plot was, what if he got this new thing available from Mattel that would be able to help him be able to conquer this foe? Available for $50 at your local toy store.
Yeah, let's not talk about Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is a cartoon that was made to sell the cards that they use in the cartoon.
Entirely. At least then they had also a complete... There's a history of doing this in television where you'll have entire shows based off a product that consistently use the new version of the product to solve the storyline as a way of making sure that people go out and buy the new hotness.
And Hasbro did it a few times.
Hasbro did it more than a few times, yeah.
Like G.I. Joe.
Yep, G.I.
is a great example.
The most blatant have got to be G.I. Joe and Transformers of just like, oh, this is clearly just an ad that happens to have a plot.
But yeah, that was kind of like the MO in the 1980s. People were making toys, and the best way to sell it to kids was to have a tie-in television show.
G.I. Joe, He-Man, She-Ra, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
They did
Generation 1 Transformers.
They did it for some video games as well.
They did it for the Captain N, the Game Master, which was a terrible show. The Super Mario Brothers Super Show.
Yeah.
Just, you can rattle off a list of just like, why does this exist? Well, people wanted to sell product.
Yep. If you're constantly bashing people with your entertainment marketing,
You'll win eventually.
yeah.
Specifically if that audience is children, which is kind of really terrible when you take a step back and look at it from a zoomed out sort of sense of being like, wow, you are all just awful people.
Oh yeah, and you get to people's wallets by attacking their children.
Wow, that sounds weird in and out of context.
No, but you know what I mean.
No, I know. I just imagine that's what the guy who robbed Batman's parents was thinking at the exact same time.
Now, are we talking like classic Batman, or are we talking like 1989?
He has the same origin story and everything.
Yeah, but in the case of the 1989 film specifically, the Joker is the person who killed Batman's parents.
So we're talking, however, not about the 1980s television show, because God, we'd be here all day. We're going to talk about the 2007 remake. I'm just going to go with remake.
Yeah,
I feel like that's
let's call
reimagining.
it reboot of the franchise.
Okay. Reimagining of the franchise is where I'm leaning. But reboot works. It's the same kind of terminology.
Reboot
of the franchise.
Let's talk about that show instead. I love that show. I mean, it's like made by the same studio, by the way, that made Transformers Beast Wars.
Which is the best Transformers product in existence, and there is no argument.
On this, we agree.
Yeah. Because it had a plot that wasn't based off what if we sold more toys.
But anyway,
that's the reason Dynamite was able to get away with being alive for so long.
This is a show called Agree to Disagree, so let's have you talk a bit about your bullshit movie.
So in 2007, Michael Bay it was released by Michael Bay, obviously. It's directed by him, but it was released by whoever. Anyway,
Paramount.
A Michael Bay movie released by Paramount in 2 theaters, which is Transformers, just the word Transformers, which is a reboot of the 1980s Generation 1 line of Transformers. I say Gen 1 because it's super important that you say Generation 1, because that implies Optimus Prime, Megatron, Starscream, all those things, whereas Gen 2, it goes through some insanity.
We're not going to get into that,
and then Beast Wars and what have you. But it's a Gen 1 reimagining of the television show, which is, for those of you who have not seen the Transformers, which once again, considering only John and my friends listen to this show, God damn it, people. Seriously, we don't ask much from you. But anyway, basically, there is a robot planet off in far space that is going through a giant civil war between 2 opposing factions, the Autobots and the Decepticons. The Autobots, in a desperate ploy to get more an energy resource known as Energon, send off a giant ship called the Ark, which is their way of sending off to different planets to try and find more Energon for the war on Cybertron. The Decepticons shoot it down, invade the ship, but before they are able to kill people on board, the ship crash lands on a planet that was a prehistoric Earth, and then over the course of time, everybody reawakens and the war begins anew on Earth. That is the plot line of the television show. The plot line of the movie is, I guess, best summarized as the same thing, only also focusing on human characters and their interactions. Sam Witwicky and... Oh, God. Hang on. Don't tell me. I should remember Megan Fox's character name, but I can't right now.
Because all you're imagining is...
No, stop. That's not what's happening right now. What's happening is I watched an entire essay series written by Lindsay Ellis on YouTube that analyzes this entire franchise, and I should remember her character name, but I can't. Damn it.
I'm going to pause for a second while he looks up the name.
Michaela Baines. God... Damn it. Oh, that took so long.
It's longer in your head than it is in real life, honestly. It took you like maybe 10 seconds.
God, I'm mad about that. Okay. Michaela and Sam, who end up stumbling upon a, I guess, kind of malfunctioning Autobot by the name of Bumblebee and getting roped into Bilbobee. It's actually just a very hairy car. It's a car with a shag rug.
But man, does he love drinking and smoking his pipe.
You're still basically describing a Transformer right there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what happens is they stumble upon a malfunctioning Autobot by the name of Bumblebee and get wrapped up in the entire debacle that is this civil war between two opposing robot factions.
Oh, that's right. Bumblebee doesn't have a voice. His voice has malfunctioned, and he has to speak through manipulating a stereo.
Yep, which is actually
That's actually pretty clever.
It's a very clever, funny gag, which for a Michael Bay movie are few and rare and far between.
So some background on the development process for this film. Don Murphy, the producer of the film, originally approached Hasbro because he wanted to make a G.I. Joe movie. Unfortunately,
Which got handed over to somebody else then, right?
well, what happened was in 2003, the U.S. entered Iraq.
How about no?
And
How about
Hasbro was
so
like,
no?
hey, you know what? We don't want people thinking we're making a propaganda film. So
Yeah.
how about Transformers instead?
No, I see the problems like immediately.
So him and another guy, I can't remember his name right now, but they started working on a script that was supposed to be about the creation matrix. However,
Isn't that the leadership matrix?
no, it was called the creation matrix.
Okay.
But the problem with using the word matrix is they didn't want it to get confused with the Matrix.
That is also fair.
So instead, they decided to do a whole different plot, and they were going to rename a few things to make it okay. And then in 2004, they signed on Steven Spielberg, who was excited because he was actually a fan of the toys and comics. In 2005, Steven Spielberg signed on to be the executive producer. And then in 2005, he changed the direction to be specifically
Right.
a story about a boy in his car.
Right, he was the executive producer on this series, wasn't he? Which, by the way, for those of you who don't remember much about the Transformers Generation 1 show, kind of resembles the actual relationship between Sam and Bumblebee on the original television show.
Also in 2005, Steven Spielberg roped in Michael Bay. Michael Bay didn't really want to do the movie.
No,
He
really,
referred
I
to it-
couldn't tell.
He referred to it specifically as a stupid toy movie.
He's not wrong.
But he just wanted an excuse to work on a film with Steven Spielberg because
Who wouldn't?
exactly.
It's like when what was his name? Jonah Hill tried to find a way to work with frickin' Martin Scorsese.
Oh, yeah.
And like just bumbled his way through an interview for Wolf of Wall Street. And then Leo convinced Martin Scorsese to give him the job. They did an amazing job, but it's just really funny to be like, yeah, the lengths people will go to be like, I need to work with this director at some point in my life. I love their movies. I need to do this. Which, in fairness to Michael Bay, I would do too.
Also, in fairness to Michael Bay, according to the write-up that I read, he did develop a love for the franchise after he visited Hasbro and got to see how deep the potential lore actually was.
The lore in by the way, side note, we'll get back to John's point in a second. The lore in Transformers is deeper than the lore in Star Wars. It is intense, man, and I know way too much of it.
Now, you say that, and that actually doesn't surprise me, but at the same time, I would also argue that probably the lore in Sonic the Hedgehog is deeper than both of them.
Oh, I'm not using that as an argument for quality, because there are a lot of Transformers where I'm like, can we forget about the Japanese exclusive thing that involves underage girls? Can we just ignore the fact that happened? Exactly, John, we don't talk about it.
Let's just leave that in Japan.
Yes,
They
we
can
leave it
do-
in Japan because it's weird and we all like to think about
And
it.
Japan can deal with that shit way better than we can.
The images are terrifying.
Anyway, so this movie cost $150 million to make.
I am so glad I did not take a sip of beer at that point because that would have gone spraying into this microphone.
Do you know how much the movie grossed, though?
Don't say it during the sip. Say it after. Hang on.
Wait for it, folks.
Okay, now you can tell me.
$709 million.
Holy shit.
In fact, some of the sequels actually crossed the threshold of the $1 billion mark.
Oh my god, no wonder they keep making these movies. It prints money.
Now, even though it made that much fucking money, in the year 2007, it was only the 5th highest grossing film.
What the hell was the highest?
And now I wrote down the top 10.
Okay, give me the top 10. We'll do this David Letterman style. Hang on.
No, stop.
Yeah.
I have this all planned out.
Okay, okay, go for it.
So this was number 5.
Sure.
Number 4, Shrek the Third. It was beaten by the third Shrek film. Number 3, Spider-Man 3. The worst of the original Spider-Man trilogy. Number 2, Harry Potter, The Order of the Phoenix, which is fine. It's also like the 5th movie in the franchise. And number 1 for that year was Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End.
I'm gonna throw things.
Which was also the third movie
and it's the
in its
worst.
franchise. No, but so that's the thing. All the movies that beat it were sequels. Now, that being said, you know what movies it beat? At number 6, we have Ratatouille. So Transformers beat Ratatouille. Number 7, we have I Am Legend. Which, yeah, okay. Number 8, we have The Simpsons movie.
Hey, tie-ins.
Number 9, we have National Treasure Book of Secrets, which actually ties into Transformers because Jon Voight was in the original National Treasure as Nick Cage. Anyway.
Whatever. There is something. Yeah,
in the 10th space, and this surprised me, number 10 that year was 300.
2007 was not a good year for film, apparently.
But think about that, like 300, a movie that like
is currently
say what you will about like its longevity, but is still pretty much considered to be an iconic movie. And
it's not necessarily good, but it's certainly iconic.
It also made that director's career.
Yes.
Whose name escapes me currently.
Which is hilarious.
You know I'm bad with names.
No, I know. But no, the style of 300 is super iconic and is something that we all remember. I could not tell you what happens in Pirates at World's End.
I could. That's the one where everyone's a pirate. Like, literally everyone becomes a pirate.
So helpful, John.
They have to save Jack Sparrow from the underworld.
The pirate underworld.
That's the one where he's wandering at the desert at the beginning of the film. And anyway, it doesn't matter.
That's so dumb. That's like so... All right, but moving on from the 2007 list, like abruptly, because you didn't hear it, audience, but I had to get up from my chair and pace.
So this movie, as we mentioned, has Shia LaBeouf, Megan Fox. I completely forgot. John Turturro's in this film.
Which is hilarious because he's in the next couple, and there was a running joke on just him being in these movies in general to be like, no, John, you were in Coen Brothers movies, man. What are you doing here?
He was one of the main characters in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah.
And he was the Jesus.
The Jesus.
He was the Jesus in The Big Lebowski.
Hey, don't fuck with the Jesus, man. Fuck, I love
Hey,
that
man, you said it.
Fucking 12-year-olds, dude.
So the most notable thing for me personally about this film is the return of Peter Cullen voicing Optimus Prime.
And the return of Frank Welker as... It was a return of Frank Welker? No, Hugo Weaving did Megatron in this.
Exactly.
And then Frank Welker came back as Soundwave in Revenge of the Fallen, even though it wasn't Soundwave, it was a satellite, because... I'm going to throw this table, that's why.
Don't throw the table.
I like this table. It's a good table.
Folks, for you listening at home, there is currently almost $500 worth of stuff sitting on and near this table.
And our beers.
I'm
not throwing this table.
No. So as much as I hate this film, I do have to give it credit. When it came out, Empire praised Shia LaBeouf's acting in this film.
He's legitimately good in this movie. The problem is it's the seeing behind the curtain moment with Shia LaBeouf where you realize he can do literally no other characters.
That's fair. Then the movie was given several visual effects awards and was nominated for 3 Academy Awards.
It's a good looking movie.
Yeah. That being said, the Academy Awards it was nominated for were obviously visual effects.
Nothing else but
And
visual.
then the other 2 were sound editing and sound mixing.
Which is fine. It's a popcorn movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be highbrow. It's a popcorn movie.
So this is a movie that was so successful that it went on to spawn... Currently, there are 5 movies out, and there's a 6th one coming out next year, middle of the year in June, summertime, of course. And then there's another movie slated to come out in 2019.
Audience, you can't see it, but I'm glaring at John's shirt in the hope that it spontaneously catches fire and makes him not say the names of these movies out loud.
So I'm not going to say the names of the movies, but I will say the one that comes out next year is the first one where I might actually be excited to see it because it's called Bumblebee the Movie. And it's a prequel that takes place in 1987.
No, I don't believe anything involving this franchise anymore, and I haven't since Revenge of the Fallen.
I like the idea. I like the concept of that. But also, I know the reason they're doing it is because throwing things in the 1980s right now is like 2010's jam.
It's like the Wii U and it's like not Wii U. It's like the Wii and shovelware where you're like, I can believe that I bought this thing for Zelda and all these other phenomenal games like Mario Galaxy and all these phenomenal games that it came out with, but no one's making anything. It's just endless amounts of terrible shovelware. And that's what this system is meant to do. It'll print money, but it's not going to be good.
So a few other factoids about this film.
Sure.
General Motors supplied them with a bunch of cars for the Autobots.
Oh, hey.
And it ended up saving the production $3 million.
Holy crap.
Yeah, think about that. GM also provided around 200 cars to be destroyed in the film.
Was this before or after GM went through having to be saved by the government?
This is 2007, so that was right before that because all of this started happening with the financial crisis in 2008.
No, GM, you didn't know what was coming to you next year. You were so young.
Also, the U.S. Armed Forces...
they supplied a shitload for this.
Pretty much all the soldiers in the film, all the extra soldiers, are actual soldiers.
So, side note, if you didn't know this, because I love this bit, the U.S. Army will actually randomly sponsor certain directors and certain films if they believe that it is not necessarily pushing a pro-war agenda, because that's what everybody imagines, just something that paints soldiers typically in a positive light, and the profession is something that is honorable and something that should be supported by the public. The U.S. Army will fund things like that. Michael Bay is actually, if I remember correctly, one of the only directors left that they will consistently give funds to, because his movies are inevitably action films and they inevitably involve soldiers. And so to them, it's, well, paint the Army in a good light and we'll pay you.
So the movie also...
It's a little bit propaganda-esque, but, not necessarily that bad.
It's fine.
It's good to know what you're watching.
The military also provided a bunch of actual footage for use in the film of various fighter jets and helicopters, things like that. Which is very rare because it's extremely expensive and costly to do that.
Yes.
Which, along those lines, the only other movie that comes immediately to mind that does that is Top Gun, a movie that is historical, but I don't like.
I've never seen Top Gun.
It's boring. It's a boring movie, except for the dogfighting scenes, because those are awesome. I mean, jets flying is always legitimately awesome.
Oh, yeah. I feel like dogfighting in general in any medium is always super cool. I mean, I love Star Fox.
Also, they purposely decided that the Decepticons were going to be mostly military vehicles.
Interesting.
Because it's much more aggressive.
That actually fits where the Decepticons would take the much more destructive forms. So, hang on. Because we're going to be doing this for a while. Lore note. So during the original development of transforming technology during the Autobot-Decepticon Civil War, the Autobots were the first to develop it because they would use it for spy vehicles. So they would sneak themselves into Decepticon territory by turning into vehicles that no Decepticon would think to question, like trucks and cars and things that would naturally, not necessarily humanoid-looking trucks and cars, but vehicles that would naturally be in a Cybertronian environment. So the thought was, okay, that's just the thing. While secretly Autobots are spying on people, the Decepticons adapted it as military technology to enhance themselves to make them stronger. So that actually makes total sense from a lore perspective.
So in order to get the military to agree to the villains being military vehicles, the military spokesman, like the actual sponsor within the military, had to tell he pitched it to his superiors as people love bad guys. Like, people think bad guys are cool. And that worked.
That guy's a genius. That guy is a straight up genius.
Like, baller.
Just the best at this. I wish I could be that good at my job. Let me tell you, generals who can totally fire me in 3 seconds if I come up with a bad idea. People like villains. How did I not get fired? Don't care, still have my job. In fairness, he makes a solid argument.
Yeah. People do think villains are cool.
And so it's
or they can, anyway.
Or that thing looks really sweet, which is, Starscream transforms in midair after tearing an F-50 apart and then turns into a raptor and shoots another one out of the sky, and it's amazing to look at. Like, in fairness to the movie, Starscream's badass as fuck in a couple of scenes.
I just thought about Starscream turning into a raptor.
No, raptor isn't an F...
No, I know.
Yeah.
But...
He was never in Beast Wars.
No, but...
he was Waspinator.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Right at that time that Waspinator became important for like 2 episodes. Yeah.
Anyway.
So he got Starscream's immortal spark for
you could say I got starry-eyed.
I'm going to choose not to acknowledge that and move on. Other facts you got for me before we get into why you hate this film?
Actually, I'm going to jump right into why I hate this film.
Sure, hit me.
I think it's a dumb fucking movie. It is...
God, is this how I sound like?
It is way over-sexualized. I mean, I get that it's supposed to be a dumb popcorn flick, but you could have given Megan Fox's character a bit more depth than eye candy.
The thing is, what's frustrating about it, and this is part of the thing that Lindsay Ellis brings up, in fact, the main character of the series for the first 2 movies is Michaela. She's the one who actually goes through an arc and has a plot line and an interesting character. The issue is the camera just cannot stop focusing on her sexual aspects, which is why it's frustrating, because outward looking in, she's the one with the plot line and the character.
And that's exactly the point I'm getting to.
Oh yeah, it's infuriating.
Is that Shia LaBeouf's character doesn't have any growth. He starts off as a whiny kid who wants a car, gets a car, goes through all this stuff, and he doesn't really change at the end.
By the end of the first movie, he at least seems like he has an arc. It's a pseudo.
He's still a booger.
My best phrase would be pseudo arc, where it seems like he's grown and changed and done things that are different, but doesn't actually change. Whereas Michaela goes through a legitimate arc and learns how to trust people and understand herself as a person and better realize, hey, fuck what other people think. I'm going to do the things that are important to me and that I'm good at.
Yeah.
And that's a great arc. That's actually a very good short little plot, especially for a Transformers movie where you don't have to go into really deep stuff. Having your human characters be very simplistic kind of archetypes works really well. I mean, it worked for the Generation 1 show. Didn't work as well for Beast Wars because Beast Wars decided to literally grapple everything, which is why it's a great show. But Michaela Baines' character works. The issue is the camera.
So back to why I hate this movie.
Continue. Oh no, I just wanted to agree with that point to make sure that the audience understands. I completely agree with that point. It's terrible and really frustrating.
I feel like there's way too much military in the film. It's like that's not the military's fault. It's just, for me, it's not my taste. I don't particularly think it's very interesting. And also, I hate, and this is the stupidest fucking thing, I'm sorry, but I hate the redesign of the Autobots and Decepticons. I hate the way that they look. I fucking hate the way they look. Now, I've done research and I know why they did what they did. They wanted the actual Transformers to look more alien and less like other humanoid robots that you'd see in other movies. And they also wanted it to look like they would actually function in like a physics kind of way. And I get that. I don't fucking care. I don't like the way they look. I just don't. And I'm sorry.
That's fine. To me, I just, and this is the more an argument with Transformers as a whole, is that to me, the original Generation 1 stuff is equally as shallow as this nonsense. To me, anyone who still is nostalgic about Generation 1 from the 80s is just fundamentally wrong or actively so blinded by nostalgia that they can't understand that the product was bad.
Well, and there's the thing. Like, I know a lot of the animation from that era was very cheaply and poorly done.
So much reused footage.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, you're making the cartoon to make money, not to lose money.
Right, but
I'm saying that from the business person's perspective, not that I agree with it.
Right.
But the other thing is, like, I remember when they first showed off what the Transformers are going to look like, the first shot that they showed of one of the rendered Transformers. Right. And my first thought was like, that is way too fucking busy. There's like way too much going on in the design. And there's like way too many small parts. Like, I can understand you wanting to make it look more alien, and like show off the inner workings, but it's too much. It's just too fucking much.
I actually disagree a lot with that. For me, the design of the original Autobots is too simplistic. It looks, and that's another thing coming back to the problem with the original idea. The show in the end is, there's a zero punctuation quote that the original Transformers franchise, just like the G.I. Joes, were literal milking machines. And the fact that anyone is getting into an argument over which milking machine is superior is not recognizing that it was a milking machine that's entire purpose was to separate you from your parents, to separate your parents' money from yourself and send it to Hasbro.
And that leads to a much larger conversation that we're having right now in the world about, free-to-play games.
Exactly. You get into this with microtransaction stuff too, where it's like, if you aim it at children, should it be legal for you to also involve a gambling system, which for me is the word no, underlined, boxed, written in bold, thrown red paint on top of, and then stamped onto whoever's head thinks they're wrong.
Also, complete side note, I just downloaded the new Animal Crossing mobile game.
Oh, yeah. How is?
I have not had a chance to play it yet, but I also know that it's the kind of game where it's like, it starts off you'll be able to collect stuff and make things, but then over time, every time you make something, it gets more expensive to make.
Yeah.
So that's how they get you. And we'll see how long I get to play the game before progression becomes a literal chore.
I've been running into that with Hearthstone recently, where the one thing where Hearthstone I understand where it's like, it's a TCG, you open booster packs, fine. The problem is the Arcane Dust system doesn't balance itself to rarities really well, so when you get an epic, it's the equivalent, when you get a legendary, it's the equivalent of an epic, and the epic is equivalent of a rare, and it's like, well, why can't you just double that? If you double that, this entire economy becomes better, and then people recommend your game more often, then everybody wants to play it more. I don't get it. But getting back on topic.
Sorry.
No, totally. I love that kind of shit. The main issue that I think comes in with this movie is that this thing is the same to me as the original Transformers Gen 1 stuff, only it's... So Transformers Gen 1 did this consistent thing where they would do not long form arcs, but short form arcs that were about 5 to 10 episodes. That would be an arc of a plot line, the space bridge, the Seeker arc where Starscream takes control for a little while. There's shit like that where they'd be like very short form arcs. It's essentially, to me, Transformers, the Michael Bay movie, is one of those collapsed and encapsulated into a single, hour and a half, 2 hour movie. Now, the designs I completely disagree. I love the designs of the new Transformers. I always found the Generation 1 cartoon simplistic, boring. It was always frustrating to be able to tell people apart from me, except for Optimus and Megatron and Starscream and the obvious guys. Everybody else was just the same generic, what the fuck are they doing there? Unless you get something really different like the Insecticons, where you're like, that's really different. That thing's a stag beetle.
I was going to say, fine. Bumblebee's the yellow one.
Exactly, but which yellow one? There are another 4 of them. And
hey, paint costs color. Wait.
Try that again.
Paint costs money.
There we go.
Paint costs color.
Anyway, no, but the issue with... I think a lot of my issues with the movie are the same issues. When I hear people talking about the movie, I always come back to, well, you didn't have those issues with the original show. And to me, it seems obvious that, like, I would never have those issues with the original show. At least to me, they tried to do something that was the same plot, but with more interesting human characters, because the human characters in the original show were terrible. They're just badly written, terrible characters. They at least tried to do something different. Now, I'm not even going to commentate on the shit show that is the entire rest of this franchise. The rest of this thing, we're not talking about that. All of that is terrible, and I want it to die in a fire. But this one movie is actually, it had promise, it had potential, and I think it could have gone to interesting places if the writer's strike didn't happen and ruin everything about Revenge of the Fallen. Which, in fairness to those writers, they probably deserve to be paid more. Good on them. But guys, you ruined a fucking franchise that is now multi-billion dollar. I hope that money was worth it.
Fair. I don't really have much to say until we watch the movie.
I kind of don't either. I feel like that was a good half an episode. Or
yeah. Well,
episode half.
Yeah.
I don't know. What the hell are we doing anymore?
It's a good part 1.
John and I are now going to talk for 30 minutes about absolutely nothing.
No,
we're not going to do that.
I mean, the first half is usually about 30 minutes. So
no, honestly, this is fine because I feel like both of us have you've aired your grievances. You've explained yourself. We've gone over the facts. I feel like we've done everything.
I don't want to be beholden to this, but I want to. I will say that we're going to watch the movie for the next part.
Yes,
and then after that, it will have been about a year since we started doing this.
Okay.
In fact, I think we might be past that milestone already.
Oh, hey, sweet.
But for a sort of a special recognition of that, I've got something that I want to plan.
Okay.
And we'll talk about it
I was gonna say,
next time.
If you force me to watch the 1984 one, I will actually tear out your kidney.
1986, and also I did think about that.
That movie's terrible.
It's got a rockin' intro, and
yeah,
that's all you can say about it.
It's got an amazing soundtrack, one of which is on my gym soundtrack playlist. The issue is that is the most blatant show of capitalism, where they're like, what if we just killed all their favorite characters and then forced them to buy an entire new generation of characters? Give us money.
Oh, yeah.
We are desperate for money.
Oh, yeah.
The movie.
Also, if anyone has any opinions about that film, I just want you to look up Orson Welles talking about the character he played in the movie.
Did he enjoy Unicron?
Look it up.
Okay, I'll actually look that up.
And that is how you should probably feel about the film.
I was going to say, if you have comments, either put them in the comment section or email your angry complaints to john@gggames.com.
You don't know my website.
Is it net?
Air your grievances at gggames.org.
There we go. For some reason, we're an organization. Or John's an organization. I'm a writer.
It rolls off the tongue better for me, and also it was cheaper than .com.
I'm a passenger on the ship sailing across the wonderful seas of game development that is games. Everybody.
Yes, and seriously, to part the kimono a little bit.
Yeah.
The reason it's a .org.
Please don't use the phrase part the kimono when we're dealing with so many problems with exhibitionism as of recently.
You're right. Just show you how the sausage is made. Is that better?
No, because the word sausage isn't there.
All right.
I get what you're trying to say. Tell the people
about baseball. Like,
that's fine.
There we go.
No, but baseball's used as a common tactic, and never mind. Just say the thing.
Anyway, the reason it's a .org
Yeah.
and not a .com is the .org to have was something like $30 annually.
The com.
The .com, we were looking at like $120
Oh, how about no?
annually.
How about no?
At the time I was working as a barista at Starbucks, and I was like, fuck that. Anyway, folks.
Now you got all the money.
We'll catch you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.